what they do is that they will wait for those people to go to their various homes. When they enter in their homes, the Israelis will send missiles in those homes to kill those people along with their family members, just to inflict disaster upon disaster on the people of Gaza. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. Today is another interesting day on our podcast. Last week, I asked a question on my social media page with regards to which topic that you would like for us to discuss in our today's discussion. And many of you commented that you'd like to hear my opinion on the Israel-Palestinian war. That is what exactly this podcast is for me to be able to share with you my opinion and perspectives on issues happening around the world. But before we go further, I want you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that whenever I post a new video, you'll be amongst the first people that will be notified. Having said that, I've decided to share the topic into 3-part series. The first topic I'm going to be discussing today will focus on the event of October 7, 2023. And the second part of the discussion will focus on the Arab nations' normalization relations with Israel. How has that impacted the Palestinian statehood? And the third part of this topic will be on the historical aspect of Israel-Palestinian conflict, where I'll be able to explain the root causes of the conflict. Before we dive into the discussion, I'd like for us to ask ourselves 2 questions. What do we know about Israel and Palestinian conflict? Is it our first time to see horrific images coming out of Gaza or out of Palestine? I believe that these 2 questions are legitimate questions that we can ask ourselves, and the answers will tell us where we are. You know, on October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a military operation against the Israeli government or the Israeli army inside of Israel, which led to the death of 1,200 people, as well as adoption of Israeli citizens into captivities, which included children, women, and elderly people as hostages. When that event happened, no one could tell you the exact damages Hamas have caused the Israeli government until we started to hear rhetoric coming from the Israeli government officials, some of whom included the Prime Minister of Israel, the Defense Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He said that this war is going to be a long war. He said this is going to be an Amalek. He said that they are going to inflict total defeat on Hamas. While on the other hand, some other officials of the Israeli government are on record for saying that the Palestinians are human animal. Some are on record for saying that we will impose total blockade on Gaza. There will be no water, no food, no electricity entering in Gaza. And since the event of October 7, 2023, the world have seen that exactly. So when you tune into your mainstream media and social media, you can observe that pro-Palestinian activists are asked every time to condemn the action of Hamas. Then I asked myself, if we are to condemn the action of Hamas, we should also have the same courage and use the same measure against Hamas to condemn the Israeli defense force for the atrocities and war crimes that they've been committing against the Palestinian people for over 60 to 70 years now. If we want to understand deeply this situation, we go back to 2005 when Israel withdrew all of her military operation in Gaza, as well as evacuated all of the Israeli citizens that were living in Gaza. In 2005, the former chairperson of the Israeli national security, he said that we will impose total blockade on Gaza. No one will be allowed to enter in Gaza. No one will be allowed to leave from Gaza except for special circumstances. We will cut Gaza from the entire world. That is the situation that the Palestinians living in Gaza have been under for over decades. If we want to understand the situation of Gaza before the events of October 7, 2023, I think Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, said it really well. He said that Gaza is hell on earth. People who have been under such condition, experiencing apartheid every day, what would you have expected them to have done? Do you expect them to fold their hands, not to do anything, and accept the oppression that is being committed against them? Absolutely, you would not accept that. I would not accept it. Neither any other person is going to accept that. That's the reason you find Palestinians resistance every day. And I believe that the only reason that's making those Palestinians resistance to be at the center stage, such as Hamas, is because the world have failed the Palestinian people. We've never make the issue of the Palestinian people a priority. We've never been able to pressure our government to speak to make sure that the two-state solution of 1967 is implemented. We've never pressured the international system to make sure that the people living in Palestine have an independent state. We've never made their case a priority. Of course, if we slept on the issue of the Palestinian people, what do you expect? You expect an extreme organizations to emerge. And when they do emerge, they will cause terror. They will cause fear. So that is exactly what we are seeing today. People who are under such oppression, their resistance is classified as an act of terror. But even when we check through the pages of history, when the plantation slaves were killing their plantation masters, did the American government hold all the black people living in America under slavery responsible for that act? Absolutely no. When Toussaint Louverture and his followers fought against the French in Haiti, which resulted into the independence of Haiti, did the French hold all of the black people responsible for the action of the revolutionists? Absolutely not. And what was the action of the French government at the time? Was to give the people of Haiti independence. And from the revolution of Toussaint Louverture, that's where the independence of Haiti emerged. I believe that is the action of responsible government. But today, what we see is on the opposite. Total destruction being inflicted upon people who knows nothing about the war in Gaza, holding everyone responsible for the action of few people. The Israeli government action against the people of Gaza is unprecedented, holding everyone responsible for the action of few. I think that's totally wrong and is in gross violation of international law. Someone will ask, but if you were Israel, what would you have done? For me, I think the answer is very simple. The Prime Minister of Israel should have resigned immediately that event happened. The government of Israel would have come up with a new policy to give the Palestinians their independence. Or the government of Israel would have also made new policy to end apartheid in Israel, to make the Palestinians and the Israelis equal, to offer all of them to have the same equal rights under the law, protected by the law. Free all of the Palestinians prisoners in prison who have been in prison for no reason, some of whom are under administrative process. Some of them are prosecuted for crimes that they did not commit. Children that have been arrested, release all of them. I think that would have been the best way forward. When it comes to the history of Israel, we know that it has never been the objective of the Israeli government to bring peace to their country and to bring peace to the people of Palestine. In previous time, Israel have committed some heinous crimes against the Palestinian people, such as 2006 and 2007, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2023. These are just few of the wars that Israel have waged against the people of Gaza in few years' time. Looking at the history of Israel crime, in 2008 and in 2009, Israel conducted Operation Cast Leg against the Palestinian people, which resulted into the death of over 1,400 Palestinians, as reported by Amnesty International. In Operation Cast Leg, over 1,400 Palestinians were killed. Amongst the dead people, about 300 were children. Amongst them, 115 women were killed. Older people above the age of 85 were killed, about 50 people in such category. Again, in Operation Protective Edge in 2018, 2,100 Palestinians were killed. About 1,442 of the dead were civilians. 495 children were killed. 350 women. These are figures that were reported by the United Nations. Even in the midst of the event of October 7, 2023, Israel and her supporters might claim that Israel is launching a war in Gaza as an act of retaliation against Hamas. But if we bring the whole picture together, there is no Hamas in West Bank. West Bank is directly controlled by the Palestinian Authority. But since the event of October 7, 2023, over 240 Palestinian children have been arrested by Israel. That is a crime that Israel continues to perpetuate against the Palestinian people. But because we are so focused on what is happening in Gaza, we are not even aware of what is happening in the West Bank and other parts of Palestine. But again, someone might argue that the Palestinians should not resort to violence. I'll remind you to 2018. I'll remind you about what happened in 2018 when the Palestinian people in Gaza organized non-violence protest. A protest that was called by the international community as peaceful, but was deemed by the Israeli government non-peaceful. And do you know what was the action of the Israeli government during that time? They deployed the best of the snipers they have within the Israeli army around the periphery of the protesters or in various points with the objective of shooting children, women, aid workers, journalists, as well as shooting the kneecaps of the Palestinians. And the irony of this whole situation is that there is an IDF soldier who's on record for saying that he shot 42 kneecaps a day. Do you know what that means? It made people cripple. People's lives took dramatic turn just because someone is sitting somewhere hiding, shooting them. That was the action of the Israeli government against the peaceful protest. Going back to the event of October 7, 2023, according to some analysts, such as Tahan Mustafa from International Crisis Group, he said that Israel has not been able to achieve her objective. The objective that Israel set to achieve was to inflict total defeat against Hamas. Not just Mustafa Tahani is saying this. Even Professor Andreas Gregg from King's College, he is a senior lecturer in security studies, also said that Israel strategically and militarily has not been able to achieve the objective of the war, because the statement of inflicting total defeat against Hamas is a loose statement. He also alluded to the fact that Hamas is operating in an urban warfare. They appeared in unfamiliar places where the Israeli soldiers do not expect them to be. They attack them, they inflict enough casualties against them, or sometimes they attack them through an ambush. That is how Hamas has been operating and disappear without a trace. So it is difficult for Israel to be able to win such war. That is what the analysts are saying. The objective that Israel set to achieve, some senior members of the army are now complaining that the objective of the war cannot be achieved because Hamas is not just the people, but is an ideology. And to defeat an ideology, it is not through force or violence. Despite the implementation of the Dahiya doctrine by the Israeli army, which was invented by the Israeli army in their fight against Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Dahiya doctrine is an Israeli military strategy where they target civilian infrastructures to inflict defeat or to inflict destruction against their opponent, knowing fully well that they've now won the war and they might not win the war, but as a deterrent. That is what exactly we are seeing today in Gaza and Palestine. But again, someone might say the Palestinians should not resolve into violence. Do you want them to surrender Hamas, or do you want Hamas to surrender? And if Hamas surrender, what will happen? They will go back to the same cage. There will be more oppression even than the past. So that is the situation that is happening in Gaza. Zach conducted he's a reporter and a journalist from Vox News. He conducted a survey which was sent out to scholars and experts in the field of international crisis. The result from the survey indicated that the Israeli government was aware that there will be an event, but the socio-psychopathic Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, wanted that event to happen so that he would be able to buy himself some time to stay in power, to exempt himself from the prosecution that he will be facing immediately he leaves power. And we are seeing the evidence of that already. Despite all of the destructions that's been committed by the Israeli government through the IDF, it is yet to achieve her military objective, which is to inflict total defeat against Hamas. So, if Israel have not been able to achieve her military objective, then why do they have to go to war when it would have simply been prevented? So who is to blame? We have to squarely blame Benjamin Netanyahu for allowing this event to happen, because Israel now is implementing the Dahiyya doctrine. Despite all of this, you will say find pro-Israel advocates telling us that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Let's agree on that for a fact. They are. I do agree with that 100%. But Israel is the only country in the world that has two laws. One is applicable to certain group of citizens, and one is applicable to people living under occupation. So if a Palestinian and an Israelis commit the same crime, the Palestinian will be judged in a military court, while the Israelis will be prosecuted in a civilian court. The Palestinians do not have right to self-determination. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, but in the last 17 years, it has waged more than 15 wars. Still do agree that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, but it is the only country in the world that arrests children and prosecute them in a military court. According to Al Jazeera report, between 2000 to 2024, over 13,000 Palestinian children have been arrested by the Israeli government. 97% of those children were arrested and prosecuted without their parents, without lawyer. Children are made to sign documents that are written in Hebrew. They are made to confess to crime that they did not commit. They don't read Hebrew, they don't understand Hebrew, and they are forced to sign whatever that is written on the paper. That's how children are charged. And what are some of the crimes that Palestinian children commit for throwing rock? Someone who's having gun, a settler having gun, wanting to shoot a Palestinian child, when you throw a rock at that settler, it's a crime. He goes to jail for 25 years. That is happening in the most democratic country in the Middle East. If Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, let's look at some of the facts. Since the event of October 7, 2023, let's see the action of Israel. Let's see what has happened. Let's put things into perspectives in terms of casualties sustained, death toll, and everything. According to Al Jazeera reports, on the side of Israel, at least 1,139 Israeli soldiers or citizens have died since October 7. But on the side of the Palestinian people, in Gaza, 37,118 people have died or killed by Israel. 15,000 of them are children who do not know anything about the war, who do not even know who is Hamas or what is Hamas. And over 10,000 of them are women. Let's go to West Bank. West Bank is under the Palestinian Authority. There is no Hamas there. Over 553 Palestinians have been killed in West Bank since October 7, 2023. So if you are fighting against Hamas as an act of retaliation. Why are you killing people in the West Bank? And when we check the injury toll as well, we can also understand that over 8,730 Israelis have been injured since the event of October 7, 2023. But on the side of the people of Gaza, about 86,377 people have been injured in Gaza, where there's no functioning hospital now. In West Bank, at least 5,200 Palestinians have been injured because of the action of the Israeli settlers or because of the actions of the Israeli military. These are facts that we are saying. Those things are not happening in any part of the world, but in the most democratic country in the Middle East. I think that's why Israel use the international law when it suits them, and they don't use the international law when it does not suit them. And they characterize the international community as anti-Semite organization, like they said to the United Nations recently. It's baffling because it's a sociopathic prime minister that Israel has, including members of the war cabinet. They are all sociopaths, bloodthirsty people. They just want to kill. So the international law they use so much, it is that the Palestinian people do not want peace. They would have accepted the partitioning agreement or the peace deal of 1967, 1948, but they've rejected all the peace deal. Even the last peace deal, the Palestinians have rejected all. Wow. They use that other aspect of the international law to suit them because they want us to believe their narrative of the story. But according to Professor Avi Schlein from Harvard, he has done some quite remarkable job on the history of Israel. He's a historian. He's an acclaimed scholar. He's an Israeli. He's a Jew. He made a research where he said that he conducted an extensive research. He did not come across any single evidence that proves that Israel accepted the 1948 agreement or peace deal. It is unserious on the part of Israel to be fooling the entire world that the Palestinians do not want peace because they themselves did not accept the 1948 agreement. This has been proven by an Israeli, a Jew, and a scholar from Israel, Professor Avi Schlein, in his research. This tells us that Israel and truth, they are opposite each other. They don't see eye to eye. Especially Benjamin Netanyahu, nobody trusts him. Everybody he has worked with, they don't trust him. They say he's a backstabber. He stabs people in their back and get to where he wants to be. And I believe it's the same thing he's doing with the Palestinian people today. It's the same thing he's doing with the people of Israel as well. But here is the other part of the law that Israel don't uphold, they don't respect. According to the Geneva Convention of 1949, Article 27, it talks about the protection of the dignity and the rights of the people living in occupied territories. Does Israel apply this law? Even Article 49 of Geneva Convention also talks about the prohibition of forceful removal or mass transportation of people from occupied territory, people who are under international protection. So these are international laws that Israel don't apply because it does not suit them. Article 50 of the Geneva Convention, it talks about the protection of the children and their educational facilities. Does Israel respect this? Does Israel respect this law? When Israel is killing children every day, destroying their schools, bombing their homes every day. These are international laws. If you want to cherry pick, don't cherry pick. Take the entire law into perspective and apply everything equally. Even according to the Hague Regulation of 1907, Article 43, it talks about the obligation of an occupying power or occupying entity to protect, to restore law and order in line with the international law and humanitarian laws. That's Article 43. I think Article 46 of the Hague Convention also talks about the protection of families' honor, families' rights, individuals' rights, protection of individuals' life, and fundamental movement of people, and allowing people to practice religion freely. So does Israel allow the people living in Gaza to carry out their religious practices freely, both Christians and Muslims living in Gaza and other part of Palestine? Does Israel do this? These are international laws. If we are talking about international law, don't cherry pick, accept everything in all contexts. According to the United Nations Charter of 1945, Article 1 and 2, it talks about the principle of equal rights and right to self-determination. Do they have right to self-determine for themselves? Even Article 55 of the United Nations Charter, it also talks about respect for human rights and fundamental movement of people freely without any barrier. Do the Palestinians have these rights? Absolutely not. The UN Resolution 1415 affirms the right of all people to self-determine and calls for an end to colonialism. Do the Palestinians have this right? Considering the gross disrespect for international law by Israel when it comes to Gaza and the Palestinian issue, I believe that Israel is currently facing international credibility issue, because they lied to the whole world that Hamas battalions were stationed in the north of Gaza, and they told the people to leave from the north to go to the south in Rafah. They went there, they attacked the place, and they committed atrocities against civilian infrastructure, against people, against human beings. Lives and properties were destroyed. Considering the gross violation of international law by Israel when it comes to the issue of the Palestinian people, especially the current situation in Gaza, when the Israeli government lied to the world that Hamas is operating in the north of Gaza. They told the people to leave from Gaza. They went there and committed some war crime against the people of Gaza. From there, they also came and told us that Hamas remaining battalion are in Rafah. They are going to Rafah to destroy the remaining battalion. They went there and committed some of the war crimes against the Palestinian people. With all of these allegations, Israel has not produced single evidence or that shows that Hamas was stationed in Rafah or in the north of Gaza. They also lied to the whole world that Hamas was operating in Al-Shifa Hospital, that Al-Shifa Hospital was the command center. They went there and invaded the place. They did not provide any single evidence that Hamas was operating there. Those are serious crimes that Israel has been committing since they started their offensive in Gaza. I'm not a judge at RCG to convict Israel, but at this point, I believe that Israel is committing three war crimes in Gaza. According to an article published by Vox News, it says that Israelis military chain of command is giving an order that hundreds of Palestinians will be killed just to kill one member of Hamas. Though I'm not a judge to judge them, but with that report, you can understand that Israel is committing genocide, war crime of ethnic cleansing, and war crime of collective punishment. Those are international laws that Israel is actually violating. So, if Israel wants to retaliate against Hamas, they should do their retaliation in line with the international law. But you cannot cherry pick international law. Apply everything holistically. The government of Israel, through the support of the United States, is committed to gross violation of international humanitarian law. The humanitarian impact in Gaza is catastrophic, in the words of the chairperson of the UNICEF. About 80 to 90% of the homes in Gaza have been destroyed totally by Israel. About 90% of the population in Gaza are displaced. All educational infrastructure have been destroyed by Israel. 96 professors at universities have been killed since the beginning of October 7th war. And experts are estimating that about 40,000 people will be killed or have been killed already. Israel is still creating the scenario that they don't want to end the war. Israel is still not winning the war, despite all of the wanton destruction being done by IDF. Israel is facing international credibility issue, and it is going towards self-isolation at this point in time. Some of the despicable things that Israel is doing in Gaza is that because of the surveillance camera they have mapping the entire Gaza Strip, what they do is that when they see 2 or 3 Palestinians gather together, they will allow these people to go into their homes just to bomb them and their family members in their homes and kill all of them to inflict more casualty against the Palestinian people. They are also inventing new strategy. Another despicable thing the Israeli government or the Israeli military is doing again is using Palestinians as human shield. They dress the Palestinians like an IDF soldiers. They send them ahead of the main Israeli military to survey the place to find out if Hamas will shoot at them because they dress them like IDF soldiers. If Hamas don't shoot these people, that's the time that the Israeli army will come to that place. Is that not using people as human shield? So despite Israel is not winning the war, they know that is a fact as of the date of recording of this video. To conclude, in my opinion, I believe that the Palestinians are winning the war. Regrettably, despite all of the death, despite the wanton destruction in Gaza and quantum disrespect for human lives and properties, the October 7th attack by Hamas sent a clear message to the entire world that we've been sleeping on the Palestinian statehood, and it regenerated that spirit. We awakened that spirit of the people. The common people, the layman have all got into the street. demanding their government to take a stand against the tyranny that the Palestinian people are experiencing every day. Massive awareness, something that was taboo in the past, something that people could not speak about yesterday, is now everywhere on social media. Hamas action on October 7, 2023 is not something that I encourage, but has been able to bring Israel to the court of the public opinion. People have been able to see the true nature of the Israeli government. People has been able to understand the pain the Palestinians are undergoing every day. That is one aspect. Another aspect, from my observation, that the Palestinians are winning the war is that Hamas publicly accepted the U.S. negotiated peace deal. When the U.S. President Joe Biden made a press conference calling out Hamas that the ball is in Hamas's court. It is up to them to accept the peace deal. Hamas came out publicly and accepted the peace deal. What happened? Their darling boy, Benjamin Netanyahu, refused the peace deal. He never made any public statement, neither any official of his government or his government did not make any official statement concerning the peace deal. Diplomatically, I believe Hamas or the Palestinian people have won. Politically, Israel is now on the path of self-destruction. Israel is on the path of self-isolation because many countries around the world are now being afraid of being an ally of Israel because of what is happening in Gaza. Even if the governments in those countries wants to be an ally of Israel, but the people themselves will not allow their governments to do that. This brings me to the end of today's discussion on this topic, and see you in our next podcast, which is going to be on the Arab nations' normalization relations with Israel. I want you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that whenever I post a new video, you'll be amongst the first people that will be notified.